let's get into the first story. Fernando Villavicencio, I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but he was assassinated on the campaign trail. Really sad stuff. I'm just going to read a little bit about him. I looked up a Guardian article that talked about how he had some sort of connection to Assange and WikiLeaks. He wasn't a politician. Apparently, he was, according to this report, an investigative journalist and somewhat of a whistleblower through his career. I'm just going to read this. It says the following year, Villavicencio worked with the Guardian reporters to reveal the multi-million-dollar pound spy operation mounted by the Ecuadorian government to monitor visitors at Julian Assange during the WikiLeaks founder's 7-year stay in the country's embassy. If you guys remember, Julian Assange was stuck in Ecuador's embassy. So this guy at the time was an investigative journalist who was uncovering that story. In 2016, a judge ordered his imprisonment again for using hacked emails in an investigation into alleged corruption at an oil company. Villavicencio then sought refuge in Lima, where he was granted asylum until 2017. So he had a lot of run-ins with the president. He called himself anti-corruption, tough on crime. He was not the front runner in the election, and it said that according to this report, he was known as a leftist. He considered himself a leftist. I know I saw some the African journalist, like literally from Africa. I'm not saying just like his ethnicity. Like there's I think his name is Simon Ataba or something like that. He's a White House reporter, and he was like, oh my gosh, the right-wing president. And it's like, I believe he was an anti-corruption leftist and considered himself a leftist, but I don't think he was your traditional leftist. He was a huge critic of former President Rafael Correa, a leftist populist with an authoritarian streak who governed Ecuador from 2007 to 2017. So long story short, you can look into it more. It's pretty crazy anytime somebody gets shot, especially in a presidential election cycle, when they're running for office. Former journalist, former investigative journalist, whistleblower, had been a huge critic of the authoritarian leftist government, as he says, covered stories for Assange to show that the government was spying on visitors, and he got killed. A lot of people will wonder why. Did he get killed because of that? Did he get killed because he was talking about, I saw one of his last campaign speeches, and he was heavy against the drug cartels. And if you didn't know anything about South America and Central America, from below Mexico, etc., the cartels run Mexico, I would say. The cartels run a lot of the countries like Ecuador, Colombia. They have a huge presence there. So whenever somebody runs on the platform of solving the corruption of the cartel members or solving the drug problem, it's not always popular. And sometimes either they don't mean it or they do mean it and they get got. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Someone said, I wonder why the mainstream media is covering this. Well, I think it's such a big story, you have to cover it. The question is, are you going to cover it accurately or not? What are you going to say about the guy? The Guardian had worked with this guy, so I read their article since they had a relationship with him. And they were, I think, pretty instrumental in some of the WikiLeaks Julian Assange reporting. So that's one of the articles I read. I think you can't not cover this story. Everyone's going to cover it. CNN, Fox. The question is, what are they going to say about it? How are they going to present this guy? And what are their thoughts about why he got assassinated? It's definitely not good. And before I move on, someone said it's okay, we have Anomaly to cover it. I am going to be honest. I could act like this guy's my best friend or I know him, but I didn't even know who he was until today. And that's a lot of journalists. They don't cover Ecuadorian politics that closely. So I would say, if you're interested in finding out more than I told you about how he was an investigative journalist, etc., I would just look up a few sources, kind of compare what you see if you really want to look into it. Because I think that today, a lot of people will be overconfident and turn this into the narrative they want to turn it into. Like, oh, he was a super right-wing guy. Like, he really wasn't, I don't think. I think he was left-wing, but not left-wing authoritarian, maybe like a more righteous guy, like a Glenn Greenwald style. I'm not quite sure. You can only know so much from certain articles, but I would say look into it, but don't just blindly believe every theory you hear, because it could be a multitude of things. And, I don't know. Could be the fact that he threatened the cartels. Could be the fact that he pissed off intelligence groups or his own government. I mean, the guy had some issues years prior just for doing this type of whistleblowing. he was a brave guy, investigative journalist. Clearly, he made a lot of enemies in his journalistic career and political career, and somebody shot him. Wouldn't be shocked if it were the drug cartels. Wouldn't be shocked if it was something else. If you want to look into it more, feel free. I don't think you should take my word on it or anyone's complete word on it, in the sense of there's more angles to this story than you could cover in 5-6 minutes. So